state who made each. The chair will then call for those in favor, against, or abstaining. The public is invited to participate in the meeting, just as with all CRRMA meetings. If you are interested in asking a question or providing a comment, please submit a comment in the chat function of the video component or ask to be recognized by phone. I will note this meeting is a bit unique in that we will have an executive session. When we get to that item, the board will retire into executive session. The public is welcome to stay in this meeting, and the board will rejoin once their executive session meeting is over. If there are no questions from the board, we are ready to begin with the chair reading item 2 into the record.
All right, thank you, Raymond. First of all, I'd like to welcome our new members, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Lamantia, and Mr. Zaragoza. Thank you for your willingness to serve with us. I look forward to meeting you personally, hopefully sometime in the not too distant future. And I appreciate your patience and accommodation for this particular meeting, because you're coming in toward the end of the year and we've got some action items that are time sensitive, like the adoption of our budget and other matters. So you're going to kind of be going with us blindly in that respect. I'm going to rely on Mr. Smith and Mr. Rosas to assist me in making sure that we answer any questions, or Raymond and the staff answer any questions that the new members might have. With that, I'd like to read in number 2, recognition of former board members Joe Wardy, Les Parker, and Joe Fernandez. I know that Joe is on the meeting. I don't believe Joe or Les are, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of them for their service. They've respectively served 6 and 5 years on the RMA and have been instrumental in a lot of the great work and accomplishments that have taken place over that time frame. And so Raymond is showing a plaque that we've prepared for each of you, that we'll make sure that we get to you at our earliest convenience. But I do want to thank you, and Raymond, it's really a beautiful momentum, and I want to thank you all for putting that together. Jim, Luis, do you have any comments? And then I'll turn it over to Joe if he wants to say anything.
Well, yeah, this is Jim, and I do have comments. I really can't tell you how much that I appreciate the mentoring that I got from Joe Wardy especially, and Les Parker and Joe Fernandez as well, as they were on board when I came on new, and were very instrumental in helping me get well grounded, and have become good friends, and I will continue to keep that friendship alive. So thank you all very, very much. You mean a lot to me.
This is Luis Rosas, and being that I'm still very new on this board, I am very appreciative of the input from the outgoing members. I learned a lot in the meetings that we have had together, and I thank you all for that, and I look forward to working with the newer members that were just put on as well.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you have anything you want to say? Is Joe still there?
Joe, you're muted if you want to unmute yourself.
Did Joe get disconnected?
Yeah, it looks like he's frozen.
All right. All right. Can you text him and tell him he's frozen? He might not know.
Sure.
I know Mr. Byrne or Mr. Lamantia, would either of you like to take a few minutes to introduce yourselves to the board? I don't believe Mr. Zaragoza has joined us, has he, Raymond?
I don't believe he has.
No, I
Okay.
don't think so.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes. Hello, my name is Patrick Byrne. I run a company here called CRRMA Farms in El Paso. I've been in El Paso about 12 years, and I've enjoyed some of the projects that you've completed here, mainly the 375 connector because I live in the Upper Valley and I work by the Zaragoza Bridge. And right now I'm looking forward to the completion of Wynn Road, and just happy to serve. And I did spend some time with Raymond and hear about all the projects you're working on. They seem very interesting. So I'd just like to listen, and any way I can assist, I'm happy to do so.
I'm sorry, I'm back on.
Oh, hey, Joe.
Well,
I wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to make any comments.
well, yes, and more than anything, I really appreciate working with all of you. You know, Raymond and Robert, you've done a heck of a job with the organization, and so really, more than anything, I'm kind of like the new members. I learned a lot, and really appreciate all the help that we ever got from you. And but it was fun. You have a great team, and so look forward to maybe piping in once in a while and see how y'all doing.
Well, great. We'd love to have you. You take good care of yourself, okay?
You got it.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Mr. Lamantia, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. My name is Nick Lamantia, and we own and operate LNF Distributors out here, the Budweiser facility. I believe the only reason y'all actually asked me to be on this board is so that for y'all's holiday parties, y'all could get some free alcohol. That's why most people are my friend. No, we have a large distribution company. Been here for 10 years. I'm very, very happy to be part of the El Paso community. I love it, and to be asked to be on this board has been extremely nice. I'm looking forward to learning a lot, and hopefully at some point I can provide, some insights. I'm not the smartest man, but I just give you honest work. So hopefully that'll be helpful. So thanks for allowing me to join y'all's board.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we look forward to having both of you contribute. And I'm going to coordinate with Raymond because we have a couple of different committees, and he can reach out to you to see where you might have a preference or an interest, and then we can make those appointments at the next meeting. Is that okay, Raymond?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is discussion and action on the election of officers, vice chair, treasurer, secretary, and alternate secretary. If I can take privilege here, because we're losing 3 members who have long tenures and who all were in officer positions during those tenures. What I'd like to propose is that Jim Smith be nominated as vice chair, Michael Norwich as treasurer, and then Mr. Rojas as secretary. Do we need to have an alternate secretary, Raymond?
It can be useful but it's up to the board. It's not a requirement.
Well, let's just do the secretary for now. And then once the other board members we get them organized and situated, we can add somebody if that's okay.
Okay by me.
Does anyone object to that? If not, I'd like to submit that as a nomination.
No objection for me.
I talked to Mike, and I had Raymond talk to Michael, and he said he was okay serving as treasurer since he's on the finance committee, I believe. So he can just step into that role. Luis, are you okay being appointed secretary?
Yes, that's fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, then can I get a second then from somebody?
Is Jim my second?
Okay. Can then Are there any discussion, any questions? If not, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank you. All right, motion passes unanimously. Next item, item 4 is adoption of the minutes of the board meeting of July 8th, 2020. The current members who were here on July, does anyone have any questions about any of any amendments or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Jim, I move to approve.
Luis, second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on, item number 5, discussion and action on a board resolution adopting the CRRMA budget for fiscal year 2021 as recommended by the Finance Committee. Are any members of the Finance Committee here today or not?
No, ma'am. So Mr. Norwich is not able to attend, and Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Parker were replaced.
Okay. So do you want to, do you have a presentation or anything to summarize it, or you just want to summarize it, Robert, for everyone, particularly the newer members?
Yes, ma'am. I have a full presentation. I can go quickly if you'd like.
Yes, I think that would be helpful because we have new members that are being asked to approve a budget. I want to make sure they have a chance to at least see it.
Yes, ma'am. So
Actually, if I could just interrupt real briefly, Mr. Zaragoza has joined us. So just
okay, great.
for the record.
So I do have a presentation. We may skip over a couple slides and just stick to the large variances. First, we'll set the stage by looking at where we are in the current year, and then look at a quick overview of the budget, and then go into a little more detail with revenues and appropriations before moving on to the bike share.
That's fine. Thank you.
So what we have here is a table at the bottom of the page that shows our current year budget. As a reminder, our budget year runs September 1st through August 31st, so we're at the very last few days. These are our actuals through the third quarter. Some of our revenues do not come in normally until this time of year. This top one right here, we hopefully will get in the next few days. The IRS is running a little bit behind, and they're the ones that owe us those funds. So if we don't get them, we'll just make an accrual for the current year. And then we are submitting some invoices as projects close out towards the end of the year. But I do project us getting closer to $500,000 in revenue for the current year. This is where we stand as far as our appropriations, what we spend our money on. For you new members, we're largely paying for the salary and benefits for Mr. Tellez and myself. And then we have contractual services and a small amount of operating dollars. As you can see, we expect to finish under budget on contracts and on operating expenditures. We normally do that. We might have a little bit higher of a budget so that we have some wiggle room, but we do not typically finish over budget on any of those items. And we are forecasting to finish right at budget on salaries and benefits. So moving on to the overview, as I mentioned, our fiscal year starts September 1st next week. We're proposing only the operating budget. Capital budgets for individual projects are done separately, and you all approve them at the time of each project as we make an agreement with one of our partners to provide us access to funds, and so we'll set up those budgets separately. So today we're only talking about the operations of the actual organization. We do have revenues from those projects, the portion of the projects that pay for the administrative costs for Raymond and myself. And there's one major change from last year to this year, and that is we're getting a one-time revenue of more than $5 million related to the closeout of the Spur 601 project and the retirement of the last bonds. We retired those bonds a week ago Monday. We get one more pass-through toll payment from TxDOT in January, and we will keep a sizable portion of those dollars. We are requesting, before we appropriate those dollars, to have a strategic planning session with the board to discuss best uses. So at a high level, we are showing this gigantic increase. We've got 2019, 2020, and 2021. This is the budget I'm asking you to approve today. And you do see the large increase that's due to that one-time revenue that we anticipate receiving. As a reminder, we are an unfunded agency. We do not have the ability to tax. We cannot collect sales taxes or anything like that. So we've developed smaller diversified funding streams. And this year we've got the big one-time revenue. I'm not going to go into detail on all the little revenues, but we do cobble together pieces from bond issuances or projects that we have going on, and those combined with salary reimbursements from TxDOT funded projects is how we support ourselves. This is just a quick update on some of the projects we anticipate collecting throughout this year. We've sent some invoices off for these. And then next year, these are the projects that we know that the board has approved that we've included as revenue for next year. And again, the major variance is this one-time payment related to the retirement of debt. We've got, again, the 2020 budget and the 2021, and you can see the variances here. This America's Interchange BAB, we may get into some more detail on, but we returned some project funds, and so we expect that BAB's credit to decrease this year. And then we do have an increase in project revenues because we've had a few more projects that have been agreed to. But on the whole, the major change is that one-time payment. So if we look at how we're going to spend our money, again, we've got 2 years of prior history for you. And then this third year, we are forecasting for potential increases in salaries and benefits based on performance. But that's the only change. Healthcare, I believe, changed slightly on the employer side, but that's it. And then here is our operating budget. Again, 2 years of prior budgets, and then the current year. I'd like to point out to you legal services. We are requesting a large increase. This is partially due to current year. We've seen quite a bit of activity related to the Border West Extension project. And as we sort things out with TxDOT on that project, we anticipate needing a few more dollars. And then also legislature is going to be in session in the spring. And so in those every other year, we do see higher costs as we're working with our attorneys who are based in Austin and work with several other RMAs. We do know we have a little more work with them. Another major change I'd like to bring to your attention is the management agreement with the city. The board approved this in March, and we amended our budget mid-year. So this year we're putting in the full cost of the agreement, and that's $35,000. We are getting a higher level of service, and we're happy with that. And then lastly, the bike share contribution, and we'll discuss this a little more when the bike share, but the bike share and no bike share in the country is self-supporting. All of them need some kind of external support. We were not able to land any sponsorships after COVID, and so we are asking to allocate some money over to the bike share to ensure operations. This is a lot of words that match basically what I just said, those major changes that I brought to your attention. And then here's the bike share budget. We are celebrating our 5th year anniversary of operations in September. We are asking for a contribution of $100,000 from the RMA to help keep it going, and this is kind of like transit programs that they require support from other entities. The fares alone do not cover the cost. Many of our costs are fixed: the O&M, the software, the telecom, what we pay in modems, so that each of the stations can operate. And so that is the bike share budget that we're also asking you to approve today. So what's actually in front of you today is a budget resolution. This is it right here. It says that you're approving the budget that's attached in attachment 1, which matches the presentation that I just showed you. It also gives the executive director the ability to make budget transfers in the amount of $10,000, provided that we come back to you with a report in case we do that. Any other budget transfers we do to our operating budget, for instance, if depending on the board's action today with Raymond's performance evaluation, we may ask that be part of the agenda item itself, so that you give us authority to amend the budget at the time that you take action. So I went over it pretty quickly. As I mentioned, the Finance Committee did review it last month and approve adoption.
This Jim. I got a question, Robert.
Yes, sir.
Chair. The negative $55,000 on interest income that you had there in the revenue sources. What's that?
We just expect to make less money on our deposits with our bank as interest rates have fallen this year. The Fed has lowered rates, and so we do not anticipate making much off of the cash just sitting in our bank account.
Oh, excuse me. I thought that dollar sign was a 5, so it's only 5,000. Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question on the bike share program.
Yes, sir.
So it's roughly $203,000, just an operating budget.
Yes, sir.
And what do you think? And what has been the revenue for the past? It's been a 5-year program. What's been the revenue for the past, each year for the past 4 years or 5 years, however long it's been in?
So I'd have to go back to grab exact amounts, but we average between $70,000 and maybe $85,000 a year. And as I mentioned, these programs across the country do not make money or break even. In fact, as one of my bullet points there, the middle bullet point, several systems have been absorbed in Los Angeles and Kansas City. Their local transit agencies have just absorbed the programs, but every bike share in the country either receives grants or funding from a local government, a city, a county, or they've got a private benefactor. But that is necessary for these programs to operate.
Okay, so from the business background, right? Obviously, operating at a loss of $120,000, over the past 5 years can just continue to add up. Me coming into this, it doesn't seem, from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like it's hugely beneficial from the public standpoint. So I guess my question would be, if it operates at a loss and continues to potentially operate at a loss, is there an ancillary benefit to the public to why we need to keep this in place? It seems like we have a pretty good public transit system, but with the little scooters that are around the city and other like items. Is there something else that we're being asked to participate in this bike share program, or some sort of thing that pays off in 10 years, that the quality of life increases exponentially, or something that I'm not aware of on the peripheral that may make sense of the bike share program?
So I would say that we do feel it is a benefit to the community. We have seen ridership. It dipped originally during the pandemic, and then we saw ridership increase. Nationally, there is a big discussion. There's actually shortages of bikes as people are getting back out and using bikes for recreation. It does provide community benefit for physical activity, for transportation and getting from point A to point B. As background, we received $1.3 million in startup funds between the city and UTEP, and the MPO provided TxDOT funds, and so that was really the seed money to buy the equipment. But this is a public program that's not designed to turn a profit, but to provide a public amenity.
Okay, that's important to hear that the beginning portion of it. I would ask a few more questions, just seeing if the validity of it is still making sense. And can you pull data to show what the usership has been or the engagement has been in the past 6 months, right? Because, speaking to that, obviously bikers, there is out of stocks, everywhere across the nation from bikes and other outdoor things. We should have exponentially seen a drastic increase, I would imagine. So if we're averaging for the past 4 years to 25% usage, and for the past 4 months, we've been operating at 100% usage, or do you have those numbers? Because I know it's a software. I'm sure they have Bluetooth Low Energy or cell phone or cellular data or other like items that can give us that engagement. Do you have those numbers? We
do have checkout data. Our data, we were right about where we were last year. I believe in July, April and March took big hits, but I don't have other than July. I don't have August. I know we were hitting a good numbers in the early part of August. I talked to our operator, not anything exponential, but in line or above where we were last year for the last couple of months.
Okay. Maybe I guess I would just continue to ask the question if it's a valid program to continue on. And obviously, I know I'm coming in this brand new and a rookie, and you guys might be thinking to yourselves, "Wow, this guy really doesn't like bikes." But actually, I do. I do love bikes. But it just seems like a very, very large amount of money, especially just from the operating costs and the revenue being so low. Even though the seed money was very, very useful, 5 years is I think the perfect amount of time to see if a program is worthwhile. Other than understanding where the locations and the geography of where these bikes are placed, most likely they're probably just going to continue to be in the urban areas, which most of the bike riding is taking place in residential and neighborhood type areas. So is now the best time to sell bikes and potentially get some cost back from the hardware, recoup some of the costs, and then use that money towards something else. So I guess my question or my holdup would be approving this specific part of the budget in regards to the bike share program.
Yes, sir. You make a great point. And one of the places we've just recently expanded to in the past year is more into some of the neighborhoods at Madeline Park. And we are seeing a lot of activity there and at Mission Hills Park. And during the pandemic, those were two of our strongest performing stations as people were in the neighborhoods and out riding. Our downtown ridership, which has been the core of our business, struggled a little bit as people are not downtown at bars in the evenings. And I'd be happy to send to you our most recent quarterly report that we provide to the board so that you can review some of the numbers. Primarily 40% of our ridership comes from San Jacinto Plaza. There's one station there, and that is a ton of our ridership as people are riding that in the evenings on weekends and enjoying themselves as a date activity or in groups as they may take a break from the bars. But in the last few months, we saw a shift to the neighborhood stations that we just installed over the past year and a half. And so we have seen that uptick there.
So I think Raymond and Robert, that it might be worthwhile that at our next board meeting that we maybe prepare something that provides a more detailed history about the program and about some of the potential grants and sources of funds that we have discussed as ways to continue to sustain it financially beyond the user fee, which we know won't do that. And then maybe as part of our planning for the next year, we can have a conversation about the future direction of how we want to promote this or look for other opportunities. I think at one point we were thinking business sponsorships would be part of it, but with things that have happened with the economy, I'm not sure that's going to be realistic anymore. So, but I mean, for the current year, what we're proposing, I'm okay with going forward for 1 year and using this next year to have the dialogue about long term.
Certainly, we can do that. We'll add an item to the agenda. This is the first year we're asking for supplemental funds from the RMA. But yeah, we'll provide all of that background. All of the questions that have been raised are valid questions, and I think when we go through the history of it, the reasoning for it, why it was brought on board, who was interested and who wanted it, and how we got here, I think that would be very useful for the board, in particular the newer board members.
Yeah,
so absolutely, we can do that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? All right, if there aren't, I'll entertain a motion.
What about the benefits? And briefly understanding the benefits can I get an understanding of what goes into those for the employees?
Oh, sure. Yes. So that is so it's benefits, but it's also taxes. So our payroll tax, like Social Security and FICA, and then healthcare. There is some deferred compensation and a car allowance and our pension contribution.
Do you have any other did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
This is Jim. I make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, I'll second. Any other discussions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, none opposed. Motion passes. Okay, so we're moving on to item number 6. Presentation, discussion, and action on the board resolution selecting a firm to provide professional auditing services pursuant to the RMA's request for qualifications issued on June 5th, 2020, and authorizing the executive director to negotiate and execute an engagement letter with such firm.
Yes, ma'am. Robert Studer, Director of Finance for the record. So today I've got a presentation for you to walk you through kind of the history of this procurement, talk about the submittals we received, the scoring criteria, who was on our evaluation committee. We had external reviewers that rated the submissions, and then their scores, and then requested board action.
Okay.
So as read into the record, the RFQ went out on June 5th. We had a Q&A process on the 26th. We received 4 submittals on July 10th. Our evaluation committee met a week later on the 17th, and now we're bringing it to you to review those scores, select the firm, and authorize the executive director to negotiate an agreement with the selected firm. Those 4 submittals were from Beasley Mitchell and Company, Carr Riggs and Ingram, Gibson Ruddock Patterson, and SBNG. Here's the scoring criteria. As a reminder, the criteria was approved by the board, I believe at the April meeting. Our evaluation committee included Art Duran, who's the CFO at El Paso Water. He actually helped us on our financial advisor RFP as well. Louis Meyer, the Treasury Services Coordinator with the City of El Paso, who serves as our fiscal agent. And then Ayanna Proctor, who's the Senior Accountant with the City of El Paso. She's assigned to the RMA half-time, and we work very closely with her. That was our evaluation committee. Here are the scores. The committee ranked Gibson Ruddock Patterson as the highest responding firm. And so our requested board action today is to accept the evaluation committee scoring and select Gibson Ruddock Patterson as the external auditor to the RMA, and to authorize the executive director to negotiate an agreement with Gibson Ruddock Patterson. And if we cannot reach that agreement, to move on to the next highest ranked firm. I will note for the record that Gibson Ruddock Patterson is the incumbent.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anybody? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Hello, sorry, I have a question. This is Teo Cabrera, one of from SBNG. Just wanted to see if you can go back to the screen where we have the scoring really quick. I'd just like to get a quick glance.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Are you able to see it on the screen?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would mention that these materials will be posted online immediately after the meeting as well. So they're all available to the public.
Okay. Can I get a motion if we don't have any other questions?
This is Jim. I move to approve.
Can I get a second? Thank you.
Pat, a second.
Like I said, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 7, discussion action on board resolution authorizing executive director to execute engagement letters with Pena Briones McDaniel, providing certified public accounting work related to general CRRMA activities and audit services related to the vehicle registration fee program.
Thank you, Robert Studer again. So we have 2 items here. The first one is for CPA work. This is the original auditor for the RMA and has a lot of knowledge going back with various projects that have been around for a while. For you new board members, I joined the RMA a little over 2 years ago. And so we keep her around to ask questions and to kind of serve as an advocate for us when we discuss items with the city, our fiscal agent, on how to record things, and making sure that our history is correct and why things may have been done. The amount is $25,000. We do not exceed that. We lean on her during our audit period. And then often throughout the rest of the year, she and I may have one phone call a month, and we don't need much from her, but during the audit, it's very useful to have her work with me. And so that's 7A. 7B are audit services related to the vehicle registration fee program. That's with the county. And these are additional services the county requested. The board approved an interlocal between the county and the RMA, wherein the county reimburses us 100% for these costs, and these costs are capped. But that second 7B does not cost us anything. We work with Peña Briones McDaniel. They do the work. They invoice us. We invoice the county, and it's cost neutral to us. So that's just an in and out. And so those are the two agreements that are before you today.
Are there any questions from any of the board members? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion, please. Hello,
Does Jim move to approve?
can I get a second? I'll second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item 8, discussion and action on board resolutions as they relate to the I-10 widening project from the Mobility Strategy 2020, authorizing A, execution of a second amendment to an agreement with respect to Transportation Reinvestment Zone number 2 in the city of El Paso, and B, submission of a loan application to the State Infrastructure Bank.
Okay, this is Raymond Tejas again. So this one's going to require a little bit of explanation, some background in particular. Let me pull this item up. Okay, so what you see before you then is a map of what's known here locally as the Regional Mobility Plan. For the benefit of our newer members, throughout the years, the Camino Real Regional Mobility Authority has been a partner in various major transportation plans. The first one going all the way back to 2008, which was referred to as a 2008 Comprehensive Mobility Plan, included about $1 billion worth of transportation projects that the various partners were involved in. So it was the RMA, it was TxDOT, the City of El Paso, and the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization. That was followed in 2013 by the County Comprehensive Mobility Plan with about $400 million worth of projects. And you'll hear a lot about those projects as those are still ongoing. The majority of the projects from the 2008 plan are now complete. And then now what you see in 2020 is the regional mobility, and I'm sorry, it's actually the Regional Mobility Strategy 2020. I apologize, it's RMS, the RMS 2020. So what you see here then is a list of priority projects for the region that has been developed between TxDOT, the El Paso MPO, all of the different partners, including the RMA. So I wanted to give you that background so you know when we refer to the RMS 2020, the Regional Mobility Plan 2020, that's what we're talking about. It's this plan here. The project we're specifically talking about on this particular agenda is the I-10 widening project. And that's what the project you see here in front of you. To orient you, up here at the top end of the map is the state line. This red section is the project limits. It's actually I-10 heading into downtown, and the project limits end right here at Mesa, basically on the west side. So the project limits are about 11.1 miles of I-10, and the project scope is intended to expand I-10 from 4 to 6 lanes. It includes ramp reconfigurations. Those are the on and off ramps. They're going to move those around, frontage road reconstruction, and various operational improvements. TxDOT anticipates the cost for this one to be at about $170 million, and they anticipate construction taking about 3 years, beginning in fall of 2021. So that's the project. But what we're doing with the agenda items today relates specifically to the Transportation Reinvestment Zone number 2. So this requires a little bit of background as well, especially for our newer board members. A Transportation Reinvestment Zone is effectively a tax increment finance district. What that means is the city of El Paso has overlaid the tax reinvestment zone over the areas that you see in front of you. Let me zoom in a bit. This is known as Transportation Reinvestment Zone number 2. Starts up here in the northwest along Trans Mountain, comes down I-10, up Sunland Park, down Mesa, across Montana, all the way to Loop 375, includes this Zaragoza offshoot here, and then comes all the way down here along 375. So the intent then is when Transportation Reinvestment Zone number 2 was created, you essentially identify the total property taxes that are created in that base year, the year that the zone was created. And in this case, it was 2010. Any tax revenues created after the base year, so say for example in 2010, the property taxes created $100 in revenue, just for ease of example. In the following year, in 2011, if $105 were generated through property taxes, then that additional $5, the incremental revenue, goes into a separate account and can be used only on transportation projects found within the Transportation Reinvestment Zone. So that's how the TRZ works. The way that it has worked between the city and the RMA is that this TRZ number 2 was created. The increment was pledged to the RMA, so all of those revenues come to the RMA, but the RMA can only use those funds in the development of 3 specific projects. And initially those were identified as 2008 Comprehensive Mobility Plan projects. And each of those 3 projects are now complete. So as we are going forward, what's happening today is the TRZ is generating those incremental revenues. Those incremental revenues come to the RMA. The RMA has borrowed money from the State Infrastructure Bank to develop those 3 projects, and we're using those incremental revenues today to pay down the debt that was created at the outset of the program. That's how it works. So what you see before you today specifically under items 8A and 8A in particular is an amendment to the agreement where the city of El Paso assigned those Transportation Reinvestment Zone incremental revenues to the RMA. We're amending it to allow for the addition of the I-10 widening project. Once the city executes this agreement, then we will then be able to pledge the TRZ number 2 revenues and go back to the State Infrastructure Bank, borrow $30 million, and put that towards the development of the I-10 widening project. So that's really what you see before you as item 8A. The agreement has been drafted by our outside bond counsel, Paul Braden, with Fulbright Jaworski. It was developed by him and has been provided to the city. They are reviewing it now. So the authorization that we're seeking from you today, as you read through the resolution, is approval in substantially the same form as attached. The idea is, as quickly as the city reviews and approves the item, we'd like to execute and move on to item 8B, which is then the submission of a State Infrastructure Bank loan application. And the reason for that is that the loan application goes to the State Infrastructure Bank, which is technically housed within TxDOT. TxDOT requires 2 readings of it at its monthly board meeting. So there's quite a bit of a time period required to actually complete that process. So we're trying to get all of our ducks in a row. So subject to your questions, that's what I have for you. Item 8A then is authorizing the execution of the amendment to the assignment agreement, and item 8B is then authorizing staff to submit an application to the State Infrastructure Bank. So that's what I have for you.
I have a question, Raymond.
Yes, sir.
This is Pat Byrne, and I know I'm a new guy. I'm kind of getting my feet wet here, and similar to the question I asked you about the Pan American project. Before I don't think there's anyone in El Paso that would tell you that we don't need to widen I-10 and improve that roadway. But I'm just wondering who does the research on how businesses are going to be impacted. You know, like if you look at Mesa, I know when they divert all the traffic up Mesa, if you talk to any business on Mesa, that they're screaming that it's hurt their business. Is that something that this board has a role in, or is there another party that does studies on that, or how they divert the traffic? Or
So I would say the direct answer to your question is the entity that's sponsoring the project and that is developing the project has that responsibility to reach out to the businesses. So in this case, we're simply providing a portion of the funding. So we're in essence just financing 30 of this 170 million. So we don't have that role. That role falls to TxDOT as it's their project on their I-10 corridor, and they have designed it and they will construct it. We're simply providing funding for it.
Raymond, this is Jim, Madam Chair. When is the last time we, and you mentioned it once, I just need you to refresh the dates. When's the last time we did negotiations and an agreement with the city for funding using the TRZ system?
The last time was so we've done 3 state infrastructure bank loans using transportation investment zones that the city has. The city has 2 TRZs. The last one that we entered into was back in February of 2012, and that was $20 million for the Zaragoza Port of Entry. And at the same time, actually, we did a $6 million, excuse me, not the Zaragoza Port of Entry, the Zaragoza Direct Connectors. At the same time, in February of 2012, we also did a $6 million SIB loan for the Trans Mountain Northeast improvements that were completed back at that time as well. So it's been since 2012.
Okay, yeah, that's why this is a very important thing for us as a board and for us as a community to kind of refresh our system of negotiations and working in concert with the city to achieve transportation projects. And so now that we have this current experience that we're doing here, that kind of refreshes that system and gives us the capability to move forward with some of the other TRZs that we're looking at for future projects. So this is really important for our existing and current dealings in funding transportation, but also as we look to the future, and it's an important aspect for the planning committee. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I'd also mention that the provision of this $30 million into the I-10 widening project will actually then free up those $30 million for use in additional RMS 2020 projects as well. So we'll be part of that conversation as well. And hopefully I'll be able to bring you some more information on that as that develops.
Yeah, I'd really like to follow through with that statement and as it applies to other projects we're looking at. Thank you.
So if there are no other questions, can I get a motion?
This Jim, move to approve.
Can I get a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving to item number 9, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the execution of the following instruments as they relate to the Valley Chili Road project from the Regional Mobility Strategy 2020. A, interlocal with the Village of Vinton for a portion of the project funding. B, interlocal VRF project development agreement with El Paso County for a portion of the project funding. C, work authorization number 2 with Hewitt Zollers for design services. And D, work authorization number 40 with Adkins North American for oversight services.
Okay, so this one is another project from the RMS 2020, and you'll see it right in here. This next diagram will give you a better feel for it. So let me zoom in here a bit. So to orient you, this is Doniphan here. This is on the west side of town. This is Valley Chili Road, which connects up to I-10, again on the west side. To give you a feel, this is the Great American Steakhouse right here. So this is approximately a 1 mile roadway that is in existence. The project limits go from, as I mentioned, Doniphan to I-10, about a mile. Project will reconstruct and improve the existing roadway. So we'll add pedestrian improvements, the usual improvements that you're used to: drainage, illumination, landscaping, and irrigation. So that's the scope of this particular project. This one is, because it is part of the RMS 2020, it is being developed jointly between various partners. TxDOT is providing the federal component, and for the benefit of our newer members, the way that a lot of these larger projects in the area and through the country, in fact, are developed is through a federal partnership. So normally the feds provide about 80% of the project funds, with the local government being responsible for the local match of 20%. However, El Paso County is what's known as an economically disadvantaged county. Therefore, we get a break from the 20% local match. And in fact, the current local match for El Paso is 7.4%. On this one, as I mentioned, is part of the RMS 2020 program, and there's additional partnership that's being utilized here. So as I mentioned, TxDOT's providing the federal funds, which in this case is 92.6%. And this is, incidentally, this project right now is just in the design phase, so we're talking only about design funds. So we'll receive, actually the Village of Vinton has executed an agreement with TxDOT for $926,000 from the federal and state components. They will provide those funds to the RMA, along with half of the local match that's required. And you see that identified as $37,757.50. However, the remaining half of local match is actually being provided by El Paso County, who's supporting the Village of Vinton with that remaining $37,000. And that match will come from the county's vehicle registration program. So that's how this program is being funded. So in essence, what you see before you under the various items that were read into the record is item A, which is the interlocal with the Village of Vinton, whereby the village provides us the access to develop the project. It authorizes us to get access to the federal and state funding that have been assigned to the Village of Vinton, and also provides us with the local match, which will come directly from the Village of Vinton funds. That's item 9A. Item 9B then is an interlocal agreement with the County of El Paso, whereby they provide their 1/2 of the local match, which is again that $37,000. So that's item 9B. Item 9C then is a work authorization. This is where we actually develop the design plans. We have a work authorization with Hewitt Zollers Inc. They are a design firm here in town, and they will provide the design services through this work authorization number 2. And the last item, 9B, is with our general engineering consultant team, which is known as Atkins North America. They do all of our oversight. They serve in essence like our engineering department in-house, and they do the oversight of the design work. And that is, the details are outlined under work authorization number 40. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item for the Valley Chili Road project.
This, Jim, if I may make a comment, Madam Chair. This is really neat and special. I mean, this follows the blueprint that we established working out there with the county and Far East, and part of our planning committee outreach program to some of the smaller entities, communities out in the county to help them with projects such as we've done out there in the county and the East Ridge area and in the East Lake area. This kudos to you, Raymond, and the staff for your outreach program and getting all the various players together to pull this off and just furthering enhance our relationship with the county. And Sal, thank you for all you do in this stuff. But this is a picture perfect project for us to do and very typical of the great value that we can provide to the region in transportation projects. So this is a good job all the way around, and I know you're working on several more similar to this in the future, Raymond.
Yes, sir, we are.
So I would move to approve.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And for those of you who are newer board members, we do have a planning committee that we set up as part of our strategic planning process to really allow us to focus on expanding awareness about the RMA and the services that we can provide. And basically, we're functioning as sort of quasi public works department and engineering department for the county on some of their larger projects that allow them to maintain a limited staff and to do things through third-party private contracts and financing through us as well. And so Benton is just one of the smaller communities that we've been able to address this. I think we've done some work with Socorro or San Elizario. We've had inquiries from Horizon. And so one of the things we've been trying to do is really reach out to the smaller jurisdictions outside of the city of El Paso who have a lot of needs for infrastructure but don't really have internal capacity to manage those or to actually get them started. So you'll start seeing more and more of these. And if you have an interest, I've asked Raymond to follow up with each of you to talk about the various committees. So this might be one some of you might have an interest in participating in, just some food for thought. Moving on to the next item, which is number 10, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an amendment to work authorization number 1 with AECOM Technical Services for survey activities for the El Paso County Bus Shelter and Sidewalk Program. Raymond?
Yes, ma'am. This one's pretty straightforward. We brought on AECOM earlier this year to develop a program that we've been working with the county on. The county receives funding from different funding sources for the development of sidewalks and for bus shelters, which support the El Paso County transit system that they operate. And what they've asked of us is coming up with a master plan of sorts and working through the design and construction activities related to linking those sidewalks and putting in the shelters along the way. You'll see different funding sources from safe routes to school to general funds from the county and the like. So we've kind of cobbled various programs together and developed this one single bus shelter and sidewalks program. So with that, we brought on board AECOM, who's doing the design work for an initial set of 4 shelters and some sidewalks. So what you see before you then is an amendment to their work authorization that provides an additional $9,600. That's for survey work that was not completed with the original plans that we received. So that's what that is for. So subject to your questions, I would recommend approval of this item. And incidentally, I should have mentioned earlier, I believe we do have a representative from El Paso County, should you have any questions about the county program.
If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Is Jim so move? Move to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Hello? Did somebody say something? Okay. Moving on then to item 11, discussion and action on a board resolution authorizing the executive director to execute an extension of the agreement with Atkins North America, Inc. as the RMA's general engineering consultant through June 24th, 2021.
Yes, ma'am. So this one, and I've briefed most of the newer board members, but for the benefit of the public, the Regional Mobility Authority is a pretty streamlined agency. As you know, we do not have a staff that includes professional engineers. So instead, what we do is we bring on what's referred to as our general engineering consultant, and that has been Atkins North America. We re-procure the provider for the GEC services every few years. This last procurement resulted in a contract with a 5-year base term with 2 one-year options, and we've come up on the end of the 5-year base term. So what you see before you is item number 11 is request for authorization to extend through that first option. We will then, through this calendar, in the next couple of months, we'll start looking at either reprocuring within fiscal 21 or extending through the second option year and potentially reprocuring the year after that. But we will work through all of that from a staff standpoint, come up with a recommendation and route it through the board for decision. So again, what you see before you then is authorization, a request for authorization to extend our agreement with our general engineering consultant for 1 year. Recommend approval subject to your questions.
This is Jim. I think they are doing a fantastic job for us. I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving to item 12, presentation and discussion on change orders recently approved by the Executive Director for the 2013 Comprehensive Mobility Plan and the Wynn Road Project. Raymond?
Okay, this is a standing item that you'll see at most of our meetings. Through a board resolution that was dated February of 2018, the board authorized the executive director to approve change orders in construction projects up to $100,000 without prior board approval. However, when I do that, I have to come back to the board in the immediately succeeding board meeting to apprise you of what approvals have gone through. I would mention also the approval actually authorizes up to $50,000, and then anything between $50,000 and $100,000, it requires an immediate email and notification from the executive director to the board. So just a bit of detail there. Anyhow, so over this last month, it was a busy month. We executed 7 change orders. We've got 2 pending change orders, but none of them that require board action. What is meant by that is anything over 100,000, I do not have the authority to execute. I have to bring it to the board. So there are none of those in this past month. I'll go through these pretty quickly. This is a map of the 2013 County Comprehensive Mobility Plan. This change order deals specifically with East Lake, the East Lake project right here, East Lake Phase 1. These are the prior change orders that have been executed to date, 1 through 8, 9 through 15. And again, you'll for the newer members, you'll start to see this every month. You'll become very comfortable with the format. Here's through 25. And you see number 27. Now, for the benefit of the older board members, you'll recognize number 27. This one was actually authorized by the board at the last board meeting. However, it was executed in this prior month, so that's why you see it before you today. This one was in excess of $100,000. So that was approved this prior month. So this is really just closing the loop on that one. Mission Ridge Phase 2, that's this smaller project right here in the 2013 CMP. What we're talking about today are change orders number 5 and number 6. These relate to off-duty sheriffs providing traffic control services. And these were some older ones that we had to clean up. $19,000 and $12,000 were approved over the prior month. And also number 9 was approved, which you can see there, we removed existing utility concrete cap. So that one's a true unforeseen conditions of $1,000. Incidentally, I'd mentioned in the backup documentation, you'll note we keep a running tally of the total change order amounts that are being paid for by the different funding sources. So by way of example, in this particular project, we have 3 separate funding sources. The county is providing vehicle registration fee general funds, and that's what you see in this column. They're also providing the general, or I should say the bond proceeds under the vehicle registration fee, and that's what you see in this column. And then the third column here is El Paso Water. In projects that we're developing, we always ask El Paso Water if they have any planned work in the future where we are working. The idea is we would rather roll their scope of work into our project instead of us going out, building a brand new road, and then water coming in a year or two later and tearing it up and adding their facilities. So we often will roll El Paso Water utility work into our projects. They provide the funding for that, and they approve change orders. So that's what you see here today. Total change order percentages to date are 1.5 under the VRF, 9.6 under the general fund, and 0.03 under water. So that's, I thought I might go through that briefly on that one. I won't spend that kind of time on the next ones. This is the Wynn Road project to orient you. This is Loop 375 out on the far east side near the Zaragoza Port of Entry. And this one we are developing on behalf of the city of El Paso. You'll see there are 2 pending change orders that are being negotiated now. However, number 6 was approved over this prior month for $18,000, and this was demolition of a pipe. And this was an unforeseen condition in that there were utilities that were found that were not known and they were not included in the plan. So that added $18,000. And that was approved. And also number 8, this relates to Pan American Drive on the northbound side. This was a change order of $30,000. We did a similar one on the southbound side where there was a great deal of, so the existing base underneath the roadway. Well, let me take a step back. Pan American is here. This portion of the project in red is really just resurfacing the existing roadway. So when we started tearing apart or taking off the top layer, we realized that there were some issues with the base. So we had to go in under a prior change order and address the base issues under the southbound. And what you see under item number 8 is dealing with those same issues along the northbound for $30,000. Again, this is a City of El Paso project. They have reviewed and approved the expenditure of this amount as well. Moving on to Pelicano. Incidentally, obviously, if you have any questions, please stop me as I go through these. The next one deals with Pelicano, which is right here. Prior change order we only had 1 so far, and that one was a deductive change order, meaning we changed the materials that were being used. So we got a credit to the contract on that one because we're using a different type of material, which actually costs less. And then what you see that was approved over the prior month was number 2, and there was a water line conflict. We had to address that for $17,000. That was under the water component. As I mentioned under the prior project, the water utility work that we're doing has been reviewed and approved by El Paso Water for this particular change order. So that's what I have. This is only a report. There's no action required, but I am happy to answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you for the update, Raymond. So we're going to be moving to item number 13. But at this point, we're going to need to go into executive session. And so the time is 10:44 a.m., August 26, 2020, and the CRRMA Board of Directors will now convene in a closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and Section 551.074 for purpose of consulting with legal counsel for deliberations regarding legal issues and personnel matters. We will reconvene the open meeting upon conclusion of the executive session. And I believe that we're going to have to leave this particular team meeting and go in to another one. Is that correct?
If I may, this is Norman Gordon. And I sent everybody another Teams meeting invite, which is the invite for the executive session. So what you need to do is leave this one and then join the Teams meeting for the executive session. This this meeting will remain open, I believe, and for when you reconvene. So Raymond and Robert and whoever else is there will be available. But everybody needs to leave this meeting and then click on to join the Teams meeting that I sent you for the executive session. So I'm going to leave now and open the other one.
Okay, thank you.
And board members, I just sent you a email that has that link so that it's at the top of your email.
And incidentally, just for the record, this is specifically and only for item 13.
Hello, Raymond?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I was in the right meeting.
You made it.
So let me get everyone else a chance to make sure everybody else has gotten back in.
This is Luis. I'm here.
Thank you.
I see Patrick's back, it looks like. Mr. Zaragoza's back. Jim's
back.
Jim's back. Luis said he's here. Okay, Raymond?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if everyone's in, but it looks like we have enough for a quorum. I'm just going to read us back into open session. And then would you take roll call again to make sure who we've got and don't have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's now 11:02 a.m. on August 26, 2020. And the Board of Directors of the CRRMA is reconvening an open session after deliberations in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.074. The board consulted with legal counsel and discussed legal issues associated with personnel matters. The board took no action in executive session.
Okay, we'll do a quick roll call. Joyce Wilson,
Here.
Jim Smith,
Here.
Luis Rosas,
Here.
Patrick Byrne,
Here.
Nicholas Lamantia,
Here.
Marco Zaragoza.
Here.
Okay, good. Everyone's back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now, Raymond, I'm going to read item number 13 into the record. Discussion and action on board resolution for the following items as they relate to the employment of the executive director in order to A, approve the annual performance evaluation and authorize the chair to communicate the results of the evaluation to the city and take other actions as necessary. And B, approve the terms for continued employment of the CRRMA's executive director and authorize the RMA to continue to reimburse the city. According to Norman, we don't need to take any action on B at all, do we, Norman?
I don't believe so, because we picked that up from last year when we actually made an
And we
amendment.
renewed the contract, right? We renewed his contract last year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Anyway, so Raymond, part of the problem is the entire board has been basically, I mean, there's been a major change in the board over this year with 3 new members being added today. And without Mike here, there's only 3 of us who actually did this evaluation present today. And so what we wanted to do was continue this item and post it at the September meeting on the 9th as the first item.
Okay.
I want to make sure Mike's going to be there so that we've got 4 of the current members who worked with you during the year present to vote on this. I mean, the new members, we're asking them to vote on something they're not even here for.
Sure.
And so I was a little sensitive at their first meeting, and nobody even had the review to look at other than me. So I've asked Norman to send it to them under attorney-client privilege so that everyone has it. But so what I'd like to do is make a motion to continue this to the September 9th meeting, but also make sure that Mike will be present, even if he's only present for the first item.
Okay. Sure, I can do that.
Okay. And then I don't know, has Norman shared it with you yet?
No, ma'am. That comes from you after the board approves.
Okay, so, all right, that's fine then. Okay. It's hard to do this because we're not physically present. And so people have to see this document in order to discuss it without being, I mean, it just is like it's not like this isn't the ideal way to do this, unfortunately, but whatever. So can I get a second to my motion to postpone this to the 9th?
Second.
And again, I want this to be the first item. So as soon as we convene and do the formalities, we go into executive session and address this. So that way Norman only needs to be there for the very beginning of the meeting. But please follow up and tell Mike that I've asked to make sure that he's there.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay?
Yes,
Is there
ma'am.
any other discussion?
No, ma'am, that's all we have for you today.
Okay, all in favor?
You need a vote. You need to vote on the motion to postpone.
Yeah, I just called for all in favor.
Aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed to the continuation? Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, I'm sorry then. Go ahead, Raymond.
No, ma'am, I don't have anything else for you from the staff side.
Okay,
I have a request. Kind of, we came into this, all three of us came in just like we did to this late in the game. And I'm just wondering if it's possible to, the slides you show before the next meeting, could we have a look at that? Because I feel like we're voting on stuff, budget stuff that we have no idea just so we don't slow the meeting down. Maybe we could do some little research before.
So I'm happy to do that. And within the emails that were provided, you should have gotten a Dropbox link that has all of the backup. And if you didn't get any, now actually, let me clarify. There are a couple of like the slides on the projects that are new, but outside of that, the agreements, the resolutions, all of that was included in the Dropbox.
I didn't see that. I just saw the project. There was kind of an overview. There was no financial piece to it, but maybe I missed it.
Well,
okay, so make sure for the next meeting that all the backups posted far enough in advance and verify with the new members that they can access it, okay?
Certainly, I'll do that. So what we historically what we've done is we post the agenda by Friday afternoon prior to the Wednesday meeting. And then over the weekend, the backup is generated. So by Monday morning, first thing, all of the agenda items should have backup. Now, usually I'm able to do it earlier. This week, I got it done by Saturday. But I'll check in with you all on Monday morning to make sure you got everything you need.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jim, so moved.
Second. Pat?
Pass.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. Good
Thank you,
meeting.
Gloria.
Thanks for your time and patience. See you in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Take care. Aye.
Thank
Thank you.